overview there, and then kind of getting more into the extracellular matrix we're going to talk a little bit about. So I have studied not only naturopathic medicine, but also bioregulatory medicine, which is really an amazing form of medicine that comes out of Europe. So Switzerland, Austria, Germany, and Dr. Alfred Pischinger, an Austrian physician, wrote this book. It's a really hard book to read, by the way, but it's amazing. The extracellular matrix and ground regulation. And he had this like thought, which was really a new concept, that disease doesn't start inside the cell. It starts in the environment around the cell. And, you can't just talk about a cell alone. You have to talk about it in an environment. And that's really life and healing, right? We think about like, oh, what are my genetics? What is my family history? What's my blueprint? And, conventional medicine gets really locked into that, right? It gets into like, you have this destiny that you're marching down and good luck, And we're like, no. Like, okay, I mentioned already the nucleus of the cell, that's where our genetic information is. That is actually informed by the environment around our cells. And we are way more empowered to change our environment or to support our interaction with our environment. So it's a way more empowering way to look at healing, and what Sinclair and I, work at every day, all day long, is to educate about this because we feel so passionate. So I love, this is like the diagram, right, of explaining the space. And again, here we have the capillary, that the lymph is, starting to move through this extracellular space. But this is a space full of collagen, right? That's the fascia. The collagen is the most abundant protein in the body, and it's part of that fascial highway. We have fibroblasts and hyaluronic acid. We have immune cells, right? We have mast cells, right? So if you have any mast cell issues, this is a space that we got to look at. And then my good friend, Rob Cass from Physica, he has like a quote that I always use because it helps to understand the power of, addressing the space. So everything that comes out of the blood takes a somewhat complicated route through the connective tissues, the parenchyma cells, that's just the connective tissue cells, and then into the lymphatics. The ECM, or extracellular matrix, regulates what we call the cellular milieu, the environment. And since the lymphatics are highly intermeshed with the ECM, we can change the terrain by lymph therapies. So what he's saying there, if we get, it's just like it's a interconnected system. So if there's stagnation in one part of our body, it creates global stagnation. But the way to address it is to get, this space moving and get our lymph draining, so there can be lots of good movement here. And by lymphatic drainage, we're clearing out the garbage and the waste and all the things we're inundated with, the metals and the Lyme disease and the viruses and the protozoa, they hang out in this space. And if we can keep this space moving, we can actually alter our epigenetic expression, right? And so then that's a way more empowered way of looking at our genetic blueprint and destiny. Just another lens, I won't belabor this, but just kind of drilling that down. The point here I wanted to make is not only that we have collagen, we have these proteoglycans, which are these feathery-like structures that help to like move the lymph, through this space. And they're not just about movement. So I use chondroitin sulfate in one of my products. And so that's why I'm kind of educating here that it's part of this extracellular matrix. And we have this hyaluronic acid. If you are into skincare, you probably know about hyaluronic acid, right? It helps to, hydrate and keep water in spaces and all that good stuff. And then we have these like, proteoglycans. And for some people, this might be fascinating, was for me. And these chondroitin sulfates are actually holding in their little feathery like projections electrons. And electrons are how we combat inflammation. And life depletes electrons, right? So modern life, EMF stress, all of it, metals, all of it depletes our electrons. And when we ground, right, I'm sure Sinclair has educated you about grounding, right? So if you're in bare, contact with Mother Earth, bare feet in the morning. I try to do that every morning, just a patch of grass, that you're absorbing electrons for your proteoglycans to store so that you can be prepared for life, all the things. So that's just, if you wonder like what's happening with this grounding conversation, it's there. A little bit of like, again, where I like when I lecture to physicians, I'm really talking about how interconnected the body is. And, Sinclair talked about how we're really both very passionate about quantum physics, quantum biology, the future of medicine really being about looking at light, sound, vibration, frequency. And if you want to really have a language of why energy medicine works, it's really like looking at this fabric that I've laid out through the fascia, the lymph, the extracellular matrix inside the cell. And Dr. James Oshman has a very similar definition to Dr. Gumberto about this, fabric, this, interconnection. He calls it the living matrix. And so it's this idea that even like our extracellular environment is completely connected to our intracellular environment. So the outer proteins are actually connected by these integrins that hook into what we call, the cytoskeleton of the cell, and then hook into the nucleus of the cell. And then that's touching DNA, right? So this fabric actually generates, again, this might be too much for today, but I want to plant a seed. It generates waves of sound, light, electricity, right? So this is the fabric of energy medicine that can also move your lymph. But I just wanted to, share that. So again, these pictures here are, anatomy versus the diagram. And then bear with me for like 2 more slides where I'll talk a little bit about that quantum, connection here. So we stop at the skin, right? When we're talking about this. And I just want to plant a seed again about where we have this field of information and energy around us called the biofield. It's been studied. It's, not just like the aura and the chakras and esoteric. It's actually in PubMed. You can type biofield and see all this research. My good friend, Dr. Beverly Rubik, was a big part of that. She's a biophysicist in UC Berkeley. And this is Eileen McCusick's work, and this is her picture. And it's like this beautiful field of information and energy around us. And there's a lot of understanding about how when we have congestion actually in our field, it actually affects our body. But I just wanted to say, hey, it doesn't stop at the skin and it doesn't stop in the biofield. It actually, we're again in this unified field of what we call this quantum field or electric universe. So we're in the sea of information and unlimited potential. So I want to educate you about your lymph, but I also want to open you up to like, we're more than just our physical bodies. And the more that we get in flow and we get unstuck in our physical body, we have more like connection to the energies around us that actually offer a lot of healing to us. And so that's a big part of my research and studying through meditation and, quantum physics and things. So just a little side note. So we're going to go back to the 3D here.